Hi everyone, and welcome to an episode of Trident Talks. I'm Josh, one of the founders at Trident Search, and today I'm very happy to be joined by Stu and Pete, who are also with me in the recruitment world. Hey guys, thanks for joining.
Hey Josh, nice to meet you.
So guys, as you know, this episode is all about, well, what we're trying to do is, I suppose for the series, is about sort of opening up different avenues for people in resettlement, veterans, etc. 7 clicks to freedom. And it's like, okay, cool. What do I want to do? Like, people know cybersecurity and tech generally are kind of good avenues, and we're seeing more and more kind of veterans transition into that space. So this is about like opening up different avenues and kind of creating some transparency and hopefully giving people confidence that a different career sort of pathways are there and open, and what they're about, and just kind of provide that kind of like, this is what we do. So I'm seeing a lot of military guys and girls move into the recruitment space, especially like the agency world, which we'll go into in a minute. So I just wanted to get you guys on board and just kind of talk about it a little bit more, kind of your backgrounds, how you got into it, and like, is it a good pathway? Is it a good career? If so, why? If not, then we'll kind of cut this call quite short. Pete, why don't you start, mate? Just give us a bit of a background on who you are and kind of like your cat badge and things like that.
Sure thing. So I'm Pete Stanley. I joined the Army back in 2012. I went to Sandhurst and spent a year there doing my officer training before commissioning into the Royal Artillery, where, yeah, you've got some good people in the Royal Artillery, some bad people. Not sure where I sit in that, but I spent a lot of time training guys, moving around the world, having a lot of fun, right? Left the military in January 2020. What a time to leave and try and do something new just before COVID started. And I spent 3 years in the world of recruitment after that. And where I specialise is in software and tech sales. And typically I'm placing leaders into early stage businesses, so startups, scale ups, not big public companies, generally smaller people where you're not wearing a suit to work and you dress in something silly like me. Nice,
awesome. Stu, what's your background?
Yeah, sure. So I spent 5 years in the Royal Marines, based down in Plymouth 4-2 Commando. Was a general duties Marine, nothing kind of too exciting. Left in 2012, and like a lot of people, I think, kind of fell into recruitment. Been doing this now for the best part of 8 years. We specialise very much in the world of clean technologies and sustainability. So any company that's doing a new product, service, or solution towards zero carbon or carbon zero, that's our target clients and who we work with, and we place people at all levels and ultimately scale businesses out. That's what we do very well.
Awesome, thanks guys. And what I love is that we all three of us kind of work in different areas of tech, but like hyper growth, kind of like the sexy sectors, right? What you'd kind of class as anyway. So okay, awesome. So you said no one kind of leaves the Corps or the military or whatever to go into recruitment. I remember when I left, I didn't know what a recruitment agency was. I retrained into IT, and then long story short, New Year's Eve party, pretty moaning about how much I hated my life, like 6 months out of leaving. And she was like, hey, you know tech, you can talk to people, why don't you do recruitment? And I was just like, what the hell is that, right? Little did I know, it's like a £40 billion industry in the UK alone. That's without touching EMEA, US, etc. Stu, how did you get into recruitment?
Yeah, like I said earlier, I fell into recruitment from leaving the military. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go. So there was a guy that I saw kind of in my local area when I came back, and I was kind of dossing around for a bit. He was always driving a brand new car. I went to school with him, and I think, how are you driving that brand spanking new Audi? I went to school with you, and could I chat with him, and he kind of said, do recruitment. Similar to you, Josh, I didn't know what recruitment was, and he just kind of spoke me through it. And I thought, do you know what? Look, I'll come in and have a chat with him and meet with you. And the kind of some of the skills they were looking for, it was all around kind of. Rather than skill, we can teach skill, but we can't give you the will. And I said, well, I've got the will. I've just come out of the Royal Marines. I can do anything. I'm invincible. So kind of took the job from that point really, and then just kind of applied myself to it in the way that any good armed forces person does, and crack on. So that was kind of my one-stop shop into recruitment.
Nice. Pete, what about you? What's your kind of story? How did you fall into it?
Yeah, I suppose it kind of comes back to my reasons for leaving, right? So I left the military because I got fed up of the fact that it's not a meritocracy, right? If you are the top performer or the bottom performer, ultimately you get paid the same. And that was something that really, really upset me. So I kind of had my eyes on joining something in the sales world when I was leaving. And I was put in touch. I spoke to one of my friends who'd been very successful in the business development world, and he put me in touch with a recruitment company called Wiser that I now work at. Initially started going through the process, and they were like, look, Pete, why don't you come and work here? The things you want to achieve and the talents you've got will fit in really, really well. I think the reason recruitment and sales really appealed to me is because when you compare yourself to your friends, people that you've grown up with on the outside, perhaps they've had 8 years head start in the civilian world on you, you want to really sort of progress quickly. And recruitment is one of those places where the harder you work, you really do move quickly. And equally, the money comes with it as well, right? It's something that we've all benefited from, and we need to talk plainly about it. It's something that can be very lucrative if you work hard and have the right characteristics.
Yeah, I think like it can have a bad stigma, right? Like not necessarily coming out of the military, because you don't really know much about recruitment and like the world itself and the agency space and stuff. But just typically speaking, like we kind of get drawn into that bracket of your car salesmen, estate agents, and blah blah blah, right? And like the old school way of like door to door kind of salespeople. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? There's a place for everything. But when everyone I've spoken to in the recruitment space who are successful, particularly ex-military, are well educated. They operate at the very highest levels in terms of candidates that they've placed from big salaries. And you're talking to like people who are like, again, candidates that are on like 100K base plus salaries who have like 20-year careers, right? And to be able to hold a conversation with those people, you need to kind of ideally have a background that's interesting and something that they want to engage with and talk about. But the biggest thing I've seen, and again, guys, you might think differently or the same, is we're like, especially in the military, we want to be like domain experts. So I need to know, and it can be a downfall sometimes, right? Because I go too much in the weeds, but I need to know everything about the market that I recruit. I need to be so involved in it where I'm like almost like right in the middle where everyone comes to you because you're like the expert. But like, so then you can actually have like good conversations with people. So like Stu, for you, for example, how did you like talk about like clean, like energy, electric vehicles, etc., carbon neutral, like where the world's going? But like, you must have, I'm guessing you didn't know anything about that when you're driving like a BV around Afghan, like chugging diesel with jerry cans on the back.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. So how do I fall into the sector ultimately, right?
How did you adapt to it?
I was working for a traditional tech recruitment agency at the time, and just so happened to win a client, my first ever client actually that I won, and they were doing a bit of this world, and I suppose I got an interest in it, and from that it just kind of spiraled from then and therefore. And I think a lot of people they kind of overcomplicate recruitment, and all you got to do is kind of just stay in your lane. I was always told just stay in your lane, and that's all I did. So I just started going deeper and deeper and deeper into it, got an interest in it, then started to show passion for it, and before you know it, you're talking the lingo. You know you've got something in common with people now, with the people you're talking to, and you've got this great story in the background that you can kind of talk about. And I think if you apply all the things you've ever been taught and the kind of ambitions and the credentials you get from being in the armed forces, you know, you can really achieve anything, because recruitment is about, you know, the work, like you said, Pete, the more work you put in, the more you're going to get out of it. And that is the truth. There isn't a Bible with recruitment that says, right, read that and then you're going to be the expert recruiter. It's about being able to learn, you know, be willing to make mistakes, being open-minded and take direction. And, you know, so that doesn't really answer your question how I fell into the sector, so to speak. But what it does say is that, you know, like anything, I fell into recruitment, I then fell into my sector, and then from there found a passion for it and built from there. Yeah,
nice. I think staying on the kind of topic of let's take a sort of breather for a second. Let's strip it right back. So I've just put my chit in. I could put any cap badge, doesn't matter. Any age, doesn't matter. Any sort of length of service, again, doesn't matter. But so I've just put my 7 clicks to freedom. I'm like, no, okay, what do I do now, right? I've got all of these project management courses thrown at me. I've got these hacker courses thrown at me by CTP, et cetera, et cetera. All I know is that I want to work in tech. I want to work in cyber, or I want to work in whatever it might be, software, et cetera. But I'm not a techie. I'm quite personable. I'm probably a gobby PTI of some sort who likes the sound of my own voice. Pete, can you just kind of give us like a brief rundown, and maybe Stu add to this as well? Like, what is recruitment? I.e., like, what do? You turn up to work, you open your laptop, like, to the bare bones, what is it?
Okay, so in its simplest form, I suppose, is recruitment is finding somebody a job. That's what it is. It's the most simple level. It's really, really easy. What you need to do that is a little bit more complicated, right? You need to be I guess, a bit of a social chameleon. You need to be able to speak to different people and engage people. So the first thing I'll do is I'll look to try and speak to some clients. If you need to alter work, you need to find someone to partner with, someone in your space, in your industry. They need to find a job. So I recruit salespeople, I'll reach out to sales leaders, and I'll try and find someone who's a good fit there. At that point, once I've picked up a brief, they're looking for a head of sales, I'll then reach out to people either through LinkedIn or through my personal network and try and find someone who I think could be a good fit for that job. So the parts that you really need to focus on is the communication skills, the reaching out, the business development to actually bring that job on. You need to have the sort of intelligence and ability to take a good brief so that you're accurate in what that person's looking for. Then you need to be able to go and find that person. Now, however you find that person's up to you. You're probably going to use software, LinkedIn and bits and pieces. Once you've found them, you need to get them interested in the opportunity that you're sort of going to put forward. And at that point, you try and bring the two together. It's almost like you're a really, really bad Cilla Black from Blind Date. You're trying to line one person up with somebody else, make it all come together.
Showing your age, mate.
Well, you know, I am old. I've got a little bit of hair still kicking on, but I'm quite old. And once you've got those two people together, it's a perfect match. You then help them all the way through, right? So you help them hand in a notice, you help them negotiate the contract signing process, and you get them the right sort of salary they want. In its simplest form, that's how recruitment kind of works. I suppose for people who are wondering, okay, how do you make any money from that? Generally, you'll charge like a percentage of someone's base salary as a fee if you're doing permanent recruitment, which is where you're looking to put someone in a job for forever, essentially. So it could be 20%, 25%. And if someone's earning £100,000, you'll get a £20,000 or £25,000 fee. In its simplest form, that's probably how I'd say recruitment works. Stu, anything to add?
I think you've explained that pretty well. And I think the important thing to make is how, you know, based on that fee structure you just explained, is also talk about how the consultants then earn off that. They'll earn a commission on the percentage fee to the company, ultimately, which can vary from company to company.
So 20% on, let's just say, on that 20k fee, £4,000 per fee, right? And a very high performing recruiter should be doing 2 of those a month. Like a pretty good recruiter, right? So again, it's very lucrative. It obviously does then go to the other side of things, which is you just started and you're probably not doing that for the first 6 months. So it's a bit of graft and yeah. I think the only thing to add to that is the emphasis on having to build like communities and your reputation and like pools of like your network and that can be quite depending on what your cap badge was. Let's say I'm an ex-Inc Corps. It's quite a tough like kind of adjustment to that kind of social side of things, whereby like your job now is to be at the front of the social media like platforms like LinkedIn, to be kind of in people's faces, to build relationships as opposed to being in the shadows. Okay, cool. So that's a day of the life of kind of like a recruiter. So I've now got that knowledge. I've handed my notice in. I've got 12 months. I think I want to do recruitment. What do I do? Like, how do I like, there's no like course that I can just go do and be like, hey, I'm a qualified recruiter. Like it doesn't happen, right? So that's great because the barrier of entry is super low. However, it also, in my opinion, makes it very easy to stand out because it's so saturated at super low barrier, like kind of entry level people. You come into the industry, it doesn't take long to make a name for yourself. Stu, any kind of advice if I am kind of in resettlement as to what I could do to kind of pursue that career as a recruiter or headhunter? Yeah,
I think you've got to go out and look for help or advice. So the biggest thing I can say is go and talk to as many people as you possibly can. You've got time on your hands. You're going to find out the most information from people who are actually doing the jobs. The good thing about it is there are loads and tons of ex-military people who are willing to help out. And I think we can all agree that the ex-military, regardless of your cap badge, is there on hand to help you out as much as you can. Within recruitment specifically, there's 3 people sitting right here who are at the top of our game in what we do. So look, get in contact with us. I'm sure we'll all be open to that to help out. But on the whole, go and speak to people, get advice, get knowledge, kind of work on yourself, because that's where you're going to get the most information, really. From there, go out and speak to companies. Interview. You might not get it right first time, but nothing ventured, nothing gained. And I think that you've got to be willing to put yourself out there, because if you can't do that now, you're going to find it difficult, because that is what recruitment's all about. It's about going out and finding opportunities and creating opportunities for yourself. And any good recruiter does that just naturally. You might not know you've got those skills inside you, but if you're willing to kind of put yourself out there, it'll come.
Yeah, nice. Pete, anything to add, mate?
Yeah, I just think reach out to people, like reach out to recruitment agencies. start doing the job that you want to do. Sell yourself in as a candidate to some of these people. There's nothing more like if you're looking to hire somebody, someone comes to you and says, look, I think I'd be great for recruitment because of this, and they almost do some of that work that you're expecting them to do day to day. That's, I suppose, my tip.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I totally agree. Both of you. So I've got my job now as a recruiter. I could be day one, week one, 6 weeks, 6 months, whatever. What are the benefits of being an agency side recruiter or a headhunter if you want to do the US market? Pete, what are the kind of benefits? Like break down kind of like what am I to expect, I suppose?
I suppose like the benefits that I really enjoy is, although I'm within a business, you're pretty entrepreneurial. If you're a self-starter, you want to build something yourself, no one's going to really stop you doing that if you're in the right business. So I've come in, I've built up my own market, built up my own desk, and you can grow and sort of progress very quickly. I've gone on to now leading a small team, and you can have a sort of vision of where you want to grow. I'd say that's one of the real benefits. We've kind of touched on it already, but the financial rewards are huge. I think you're kind of sold at the start that you can change your life, but I'm sure I speak for all three of us here. It really can. It's something that more than I ever thought possible when I was leaving the military. All the stories that you hear in the mess or in the cookhouse, it's true. You really can double your salary, triple your salary if you work hard in the world of recruitment. I get to speak with interesting people every day. That's the best thing about it. I talk to people who are running multi-million-pound software businesses, and I become a trusted advisor for them. That's something that's really, really valuable. And if you leverage that, yeah, it's just a really good feeling to be able to do that, I think.
Yeah, nice. Stu?
Yeah, I think it's given you a purpose again, because I think that we've all undoubtedly, whether we want to admit it or not, when you come out of that kind of institutional environment, you do feel lost. Where am I going? What am I going to do? I want to be successful. How can I do that? And like Pete alluded to earlier on, it can really kind of fast track you very, very quickly to kind of levels you want if you don't know how to do it. But having a purpose again and understanding, right, this is my market. Let me go and learn about this. Let me build upon it. I think that's what really helped me, in all honesty, was give me that purpose back, give me something meaningful and an interest again that I wanted to succeed in, whilst also earning the financial rewards that I wanted in the first place. And what like Pete, like you said at the start, one of the reasons why I left, because I wanted to earn more money.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, very good. I think the only things to add to that is, again, I'm biased, but I think headhunters have the top of the world kind of eagle-eye view on lots of different businesses in different sectors. And like when you then, like Pete, what you mentioned, you get to talk to some really cool people, right? And one day you're like, I remember when I first left, right, within probably like a month, I was in a boardroom at a global Magic Circle law firm, and I had like a 360 glass view, and I was in a suit and tie, right? Because that was my old agency. That's what we had to do. And I was like, holy shit. I'm like, what am I doing here? I was so out of my depth. I had my folder. I was just like, just gonna have to blag it, Josh. I was like, you're fine. You got this. And I was just like, I'm talking like, they were called Hogan Lovells, right? Which are one of the biggest law firms in the world. And they're dealing with crazy cases. I'm like, what am I doing here? I was like, I'm sure they put me in the wrong meeting room. This is like the boardroom. And but then what's amazing is that, like, fast forward 8 years, I've spoken to CEOs, owners of businesses that have gone out of business, that have done amazing and IPO'd and sold. And like, you talk to people now, they're like, hey, yeah, I made $100 million last week or last year when I sold. And I'm like, shit, that's how amazing. But what's even better is that then we have the eagle eye view of, we know what works, what doesn't. And like, you should be able to, and I think recruiters are the best business people in the world because you see so many different things, but we should be able to almost spot trends of like, okay, I know that company are going for an IPO, right? To go and basically, which is for people that watch it, and it's just initial public offering to the like the stock markets, or they're going to be acquired by a bigger company, i.e. get brought. And you're like, I can see that because I can spot recruitment trends and hiring. If they're hiring for that many people in that location, something's happening there. And therefore, when you then go talk to competitors, they're like, hey, what's going on in the industry? And you're like, well, I can tell you that this company are doing that, or like just my sort of, again, bird's eye view. I think that's super, super interesting. And Stu, you mentioned something around like the purpose. When we talk about this a lot, especially here, there's we call it the 3 Ps, right? People, purpose, and pay. When you're looking to leave, especially in the military or a long career like law enforcement and things like that, you need to look at those 3 Ps, right? People, purpose, and pay, ideally in those kind of in that order. And I think the biggest thing to get right when you are going to join a recruiter is make sure the people are good, because you'll get a purpose if you've got the kind of freedom and autonomy to go build something. Your pay is going to come if you're good. like in most careers, hopefully, but making sure that you find the right people to work around, because it is sales. It can be hard, and sometimes it can be that kind of cutthroat boiler room life kind of or kind of culture. It's not the Wolf of Wall Street. People don't throw midgets at dartboards, not anymore. Like, women don't shave their heads for 10 grand. Like, it's not like that, right? So go find the people that you can actually work with and become friends with, whether that's your boss or whoever. I think that's super important, because everything else will follow. And I like talk about the sector as well. Find the right sector, because we hire a lot of people who they're super, super interested in cyber. And it's like, if you're interested in cyber, then you'll want to keep up what's going on in the market. You want to talk to candidates and clients about it, and you're super keen and passionate. You go to all the events and the sort of expos and stuff, and you want to know about it. But yeah, that's I think all pretty good advice. So just to finish, guys, are there any kind of like soft skills? Let's say you two are hiring managers now, which you are, right? You have teams. Stu, you own business. Pete, you have a team. What kind of soft skills, if I'm like, let's say I'm ex-Royal Signaler, what are you looking for in me to go, you can make it? Like, I think with a bit of training, a bit of guidance and some hard work, you could be a really good recruiter. Stu, what do you look for, like, in somebody, especially who's ex-military or law enforcement?
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, there's a lot you can look at, right? But I think if I'm nailing them down, I'm looking at emotional intelligence, because a lot of kind of recruitment is speaking to lots of different people in lots of different situations and lots of different environments, and the ability to adapt to that at any one time is vitally important. So, you know, you've got to be a normal person, but you've got to know when you can kind of be relaxed with people. You've got to know when you're a bit more kind of sensitive to a situation, and balance and control in the way that you operate. So there's obviously lots of different traits that we naturally look for in people, but they're the ones that kind of immediately stand out to me. And I think that on the whole, it's difficult to kind of quantify that. So, you know, if you are looking to get into recruitment, make sure that you know, be yourself ultimately, because you are who you are. Don't try and be someone you're not. And you can never kind of go too far wrong with that. Yeah,
awesome. Pete, what about you, mate, when you're growing your team?
Number one, resilience. Like, absolutely key. There's going to be some tough times. I need to know someone who can get through those tough times. Linking there, smart, someone who can hold a good conversation, probably someone that you go down the pub and probably have a beer with and enjoy a conversation. That's how I would measure EQ, and someone who can hold a conversation is probably pretty smart as well. A problem solver. Ultimately, that's what recruitment is just solving one big problem. And finally, and you guys are going to love this, cheerfulness in the face of adversity. It's absolutely key. That's
straight from the book, straight from the JSP, mate. Cheers. Yeah, that's awesome. It's true though, right? It sounds Chad, but it's so true. Intelligence for us is like the biggest key kind of indicator, because there are so many changing factors throughout the interview process of your candidates that in play, and you need to know, right, okay, cool, I'm going to do this, but then what's the repercussions down the line in 20 minutes time, in 3 days time, in 2 weeks time, and being able to kind of like almost think like a snooker player, right? If I hit that shot, what happens in 3 shots time? And being able to pick up that market and have the intelligence to kind of put the pieces together is so key. And then, yeah, resilience, work ethic, all of the good stuff. I totally agree. Gents, it's been awesome having you on. I appreciate your time. I hope that this has kind of provided some transparency to people that go, oh, what's a sort of life like as a recruiter? Also, some confidence that people can make it from the military into recruitment. Well, kind of make it. We're doing all right. And just kind of like, yeah, absolutely, yeah. But like, just know that us three are here to reach out to. Just ask us questions. Find us on LinkedIn. There are many other recruiters who are ex-military as well around the UK. I know we're in a big group of people that we sort of speak to a lot. So yeah, hopefully that's added some value, and just kind of giving people a different avenue to go down, or at least explore, to see kind of what's out there. So yeah, I appreciate you joining, guys. Thanks.
Cheers. Thanks for Josh. Cheers.